What's up, guys, and welcome back to Pete's Carport. This is another awesome video on our 1967 Mercedes 200D Fintail, a car that we're going to be restoring on this channel for quite some time. But today we're going to be working on a couple small things, and that is cleaning out our engine bay. We're going to get our air filtration back on there, and we're also going to solve our heater core, which I believe is the heater core leak issue. I got a little tip from a guy at the auto parts store, and I'm going to fill you guys in. Stay tuned. Alright, guys, so let's first talk about the heater core, and then we're going to start cleaning this engine bay down. So basically, if you didn't see that last video that I did where I showed the leak on the inside of the car, it's coming right from this area. And if you look down here, you know, you've got all your cooling lines that are coming through here, and then they kind of tee off. This is going to run back down here through some device that I'm not sure what that is, and I got to figure out if any of you guys out there know what that is. Very strange. It's got a regular you know, kind of plug that would plug into a wall on the other end of it, tied around the front bumper. So I don't know if it's somebody's form of some kind of funky device, but it almost looks like a kind of a catch can, which doesn't make sense. So I may be removing that completely, but then it runs right back into the engine here, and it runs split off here, and this is going to run your heater. So your heat goes right into your heater core here and through there and cycles back out. So our issues inside on the heater core, very common on not only this vehicle, but many, many vehicles, including modern vehicles. You know, because it runs through there and it has a tendency to get leaks, cracks, whatever happens. And they're difficult to get to. This is probably not extremely difficult, but we're in Florida. We're almost never going to use this heat. This car is not going to be driven that often to where we're going to have to worry about that. I'd rather eliminate the issue. So in this video, what I was planning on doing, what the gentleman at the auto parts store showed me, was in his mind this was all rubber hosing here, and just to basically take that apart, that end apart, and put them together so they kind of just cycle back down. But this is a much more simpler system, to where I can see here it kind of Y fittings off there, and then it goes back down. So what I'm thinking about doing is removing this Y here, and basically using the piece that I bought to basically get these to go together, and just going to cycle through the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that, getting these parts off here, and we're going to tee that together, and then we're going to try to run it and see if it works with some water in it. Okay, guys, so that ended up being way easier than I thought. I actually removed this is the heater core line here, and you can see I ran it straight in. I used the piece I bought from the auto parts store to connect. This is a slightly larger pipe here to this. Hopefully this holds nice and tight. If not, I can get a you know, the fitting for here to this, since this attaches down there and is obviously a smaller fitting. So obviously this was a little bit larger. I believe, if I can find that package, the connector is a 5/8 connector, so my guess is I need 3/4 for there, and the 3/4 and 5/8 basically between there. So I'll probably end up changing that out, but I'm going to be able to test it at least to make sure everything is flowing right. So that was really easy. The other good thing that came from that was this weird thing, which might be a filter of some sort, but it had this attached to the bottom of it. I don't know if somebody rigged something up at some point, but it was basically attached to the bottom here. You can see the cord coming out that broke. But this was very calcified. I mean, it was clogged up and calcified, pretty nasty looking. So it's kind of good that I took this apart. I was able to clean all the hose lines that were running to and from the engine. So it looks like we got a nice clean cooling system. Obviously, eventually we're going to have to do the water pump, but that's not a major expense, and it's pretty easy to take out, like most of the things on this car. But now let's get to cleaning this engine bay and getting some things put back together. I'm going to be using carb cleaner and simple green. So basically I tried some simple green on this, as I might have mentioned in another video. Did not work that well, and I had some carb cleaner that I was using to clean some other parts off. I sprayed a little here and just wiped it, and you can see it got it really good. So we're going to be using carb cleaner on these metal parts, and down in here probably simple green, and then just a regular hose or maybe even a power washer. I want to make sure I don't get too much electrical components because they already have some rust on them, and we're going to be cleaning those up as well. So let's get started on that. Alright guys, so back to the cooling system, these radiator lines here. So last time I left off, we connected with a basic 5/8 inch connector, and one side was too small. As soon as I put the coolant in, before even starting it, it was pouring out right at the connection. So I went down and got a larger connector and actually connected 2 hoses, because I couldn't get a connector that was basically I think 3/4 on one side and 5/8 is what I needed. So I actually had to jam a 3/4 into a hose that I found that was gapped a little bit more, and the other end of it was real tight, and I put that on the 5/8 down there. And so it seems like we're going to be able to get this working. I'm going to go ahead and add fluid right now and see if it starts leaking, and if it doesn't, we'll go ahead and start her up and make sure everything's running good. Okay, so obviously once again that was a failure, and I want everybody to know this is my first time ever dealing with bypassing a heater core or even understanding the full cooling system. So I'm not doing any research online because there's not a whole lot of things on these old cars. You know, modern cars have a lot of different components to them. You can't really do bypassing. You'll have computer codes come up, but I feel like I just figured everything out. After realizing how this system must work, I drew everything out. And so basically, what I understand is you've got your radiator that you obviously fill your water and coolant, and that flows into the water pump that sucks the water in and pushes out. And typically, it's going to send that to the engine, okay? The hot is going to be then pushed out through the firewall, into our heater core, and our heater core circulates, and that's why there's 2 lines here. I thought one was in, one was out. Like, I figured basically coolant was being pushed into it. I had no idea this side of the coolant existed. So when I bypassed what I thought was bypassing it, started the engine up, it was pouring out of this line that we had just basically done away with, and it was still leaking on the inside because coolant was still flowing through here, and it was trying to get back to going to the water pump and being circulated again. So from what I understand, this red line is going to be my actual bypass line. So this will continue now. I have to put the Y back in. To have the Y, I'm going to get a longer hose now, take this hose off the firewall and run it around the engine to this Y, and I should have a circulation now going through the engine and back through and cooling off. If anybody knows that that's wrong, please fill me in. I might have something connected improperly, and I want to make sure that everything flows properly. So I'm going to go ahead and play around with that now, see if I can turn the car back on and see if it circulates properly, and hopefully we get this fixed on this video. Alrighty guys, so after 3 days of messing around with this coolant system, we finally were able to bypass the heater core, as you saw, and I'm going to video it real fast how I did it. Basically put the Y on and ran a hose up along there, as you can see, and back into the engine, back along this side, and basically bypass the heater core. So if you see something that doesn't look right, I ran the car for about 10 minutes. It was holding temperature. I believe my temperature gauge is working because I've seen it go up before while testing it out. And as you can see here, we're still full on the coolant, so no coolant is leaking that I can see. The inside is no longer leaking, so that is awesome. Meanwhile, I've done tons of projects. Quick fill in on that. As you can see, this is painted, cleaned out over here. Seats are right here, and I began to do some rust preparation over here. That video is coming out very soon. And something I've been working on for a while now is the welding side of things. So I basically started making some floor pans and hammering those out. So stay tuned, guys. My name's Pete. This is Pete's Carport. Another successful day on this car. It's moving along fast, and I am so excited about it. Thanks for being with me on this. This thing should be on the road before we know it. Have a blessed day. Happy New Year's. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.